Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Pastor Braden, and here is our Friday teaching. I will jump right in. You can go ahead and flip to Luke chapter 10. We are in the book of Luke, so go ahead and flip to Luke chapter 10. We're going to be in verses 25 through 37. I'll read it for us, and then we'll jump right in. And behold, a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, that is Jesus, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, What is written in the law, and how do you read it? And he answered, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But he, desiring to justify himself, said, Who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance, a priest who was down that road, was going down that road, and when he saw him, passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, pass by on the other side. But this is verse 33. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and he saw him, and he had compassion, and he went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, saying, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And he said, The one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said, You go and do likewise. So we see this interaction between a lawyer and Jesus. And so he says, the lawyer stands up. He said, What should I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, What is in the law, and how do you read it? And the guy answered, You shall love the Lord with all your heart and love your neighbor. And he said to him, Jesus, he says, You have answered correctly. So the guy asks, he's like, Jesus, what do I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, Well, what's in the law? And so the guy repeats out what's in the law, and he says, Well, who is my neighbor? And here's the really cool part about this story, is about who is our neighbor. So Jesus starts to tell this story, and we know the story is the Good Samaritan, right? This guy, he gets mugged on this road, and he gets thrown to the side. And this Jewish lawyer would have known that the priests were good, and he would have known that the Levites were good, right? And so here's this priest, and he walks by, and he does nothing. And then this Levite sees this guy beaten up and does nothing. So imagine how this lawyer must feel, like, right? That's like if you saw that one of your friends was beat up and you didn't stop, or your pastor didn't stop, or his parents didn't stop. Like, these are people that they look up to highly, and he just doesn't stop. And so, but then he gets to this Samaritan. So why is it the Good Samaritan? Why is it that parable? So Jesus throws the word Samaritan out, right? And Samaritan would have been somebody that would have been of mixed Jewish background. So they would have been part Jew and part something else. And so the Jews would not have liked them because of their race. It was essentially a race issue here that separated them. Samaritans lived in their own place. Jews lived in Jerusalem in their own place. So they were segregated. And so Jesus brings out this person that he doesn't like, the lawyer wouldn't like, and says the Samaritan sees him, and he's the one who wraps up his wounds, and he puts things on his wounds, and then he puts him on his own animal and rides into the city and puts him in a hotel or an inn, and he then pays 2 denarii, which is more than what he needed to pay, and he says, Hey, take care of this guy while I'm gone, and then when I get back, I'll pay the rest. And so this Samaritan, who the Jews would have hated, did something good. And so then Jesus, I love what he says at the end. He says, who was the neighbor, essentially, in this passage? Which of the 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? He said, the one who showed mercy, right? And so neighborliness, neighbor likeness is that we do for everyone, whether we like them or not. We should love and have mercy, just as Jesus teaches us to love and have mercy on everyone, right? At Fellowship Church, we talk about going the second mile for people. The first law the first mile is law. The second mile is love, and it is mercy, and it is grace, and it is what Jesus has called us to do, is to go the second mile. And essentially that's what this Samaritan did right here, right? He goes the second mile for this guy, and then the Jews would have hated hearing this because they would have thought of Samaritan as somebody else. So Jesus says, who's your neighbor, right? Who is my neighbor? Well, he said the Samaritan's your neighbor, right? Like, that's who you should go and love. That's the one you should have mercy to. Every person on this planet you should love and have mercy to. And so that's a good thing for us today, is that we can see is that, man, we should love and have mercy on everybody, because everybody is our neighbor, whether we personally like them or not. Man, that's a heart issue. We need to get over that, because we need to love. The first mile is law, but the second mile is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all the fruits of the spirits, right? Doing the extra for our people, and for more than just our people, for everybody, our neighbor. So that's all I have for you today. It was pretty short, but it's a great parable, and it's the parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through 37. So, hey, go back and read that. Make sure you keep up with our readings. Go follow us on Facebook. Make sure you get on Facebook Live later for our interaction. We'll see you guys. Bye.